I'd like to officially call the Open Heart chapter of Overthinkers Anonymous. My name is John, and I'm an overthinker. Yes. So when you say something to an overthinker, just flow with the flow. We want to, I'll be polite. We want to tell you where you can go and how you can get there. Because overthinking and going with the flow doesn't necessarily match up. And for many of us, a part of that is control. We like to be in control, and I will admit, that's one of the reasons I have a tough time, TC, going to the dentist. Yes, you know. Because one of the hardest things to do is to sit in that chair with your mouth wide open, and the dentist is with a drill and with needles and all other kinds of sharp stuff that they are using on you. So that's one of the places, and there are many other places. But flowing with the flow is difficult, but yet it is, I think, a part of what can help many of us avoid a lot of the S word, stress, that happens in our lives. Because when we learn how to flow with the flow, my friend Ray Jordan, who leads visioning workshops, and she was I believe she still is the visioning coordinator for the Centers for Spiritual Living, the entire organization, has a phrase that she used quite often, which is grow, which is flow instead of grow. Flow instead of grow. And I think it's important that we can develop a way of doing this and develop a way where we can begin to flow with things and understand that there is a wisdom and that there is even an energy in learning how to flow with the flow. And I think that Eckhart Tolle, in his book, A New Earth, Chris, gives us, when he talks about entering into what he calls an awakening world, and there are three ways that he suggests that we do this, and three ways that I think are helpful for us learning how to flow with the flow. And the first thing is he talks about the fact that it's important to learn how to accept what is. To accept what is. There are things in life that is difficult sometimes to undergo or to undertake, but when we learn how to accept what is, when we begin understanding that what's happening to me right now, while I wish it could be different, it is what it is in this moment. It's about surrendering to the moment. Now, I know a lot of people get upset when you talk about surrendering to anything, but hear me out. When we understand the fact that oftentimes where a lot of our stress comes from is wishing for things to be different, and I'm not saying that we don't wish, that we don't vision, and we don't hope for things to be different, but in that moment, we have to accept what is and deal with it as it is. The example is if you are in a driving rainstorm in the middle of the night and your tire goes flat, and it's your responsibility to change the tire, no amount of wishing that it would go away and that the tire would somehow suddenly inflate on its own and the rain would stop. So taking the time, taking the initiative, taking the situation at hand and deciding I'm going to accept what is in this moment and be in this moment allows us to do that. And when there are situations and circumstances that are in our lives where they cause us distress, they cause us unease, they cause us all of those things, then a part of that then is to begin the situation of getting out of those things. But in the moment it might be In that moment it might be. In that moment it might be that we have to accept what is in that moment. Not to causes us to stress out, not to causes us to sometimes miss the very thing that might open up for us to provide the way out of what it is that we have decided that we have to accept in the moment. So it's important for us, I think, to see that and begin to understand. It's the second step is when we learn how to accept those things. The second stage is that when we have surrendered, the surrendered action in this moment is enjoyment. Enjoyment. When we can begin learning how to enjoy ourselves. And enjoyment is oftentimes we look to other people and situations, circumstances to make us enjoy ourselves. I mean, we have people, we look for that. People go out in their dating life and they go out on dates and all of that, and they look for somebody that's going to make them laugh and somebody that's going to have fun with, and all of those are things that are great. But the thing of it is, the secret that I think is really not a big secret that all of you know, is that ultimately it's not the things that bring us joy. It's the joy that you bring into the situation that causes it to be a time and a place and a space for enjoyment. And connecting with our divine self, with our inner self, allows us to be able to bring a sense of enjoyment into these things and to the things that we do in life. When we begin to understand that it's that way, we do it because we focus on the present moment, not on the past, not on the future, but in the present moment. We bring a sense of enjoyment into the situation. And one of the things I think is important that he suggests is make a list of the things that you do on a daily basis. From brushing your teeth, to washing your dishes, to making your bed, to all of those things that we do. Making a list and then deciding that when you are engaged in those things, you are going to enjoy them. Because you're going to be in the present moment when we are doing those things. And I talked about a few weeks ago, Brother Lawrence, who wrote some of the spiritual classics. And one of the things that he talked about, because he was in a monastery and his other fellow monks had the opportunities to do all of the meditating and those things, but he was in the kitchen. And he felt a little envious of the fact that they were able to do those things, and he had to wash dishes and do things in the kitchen and didn't always have the opportunities that they had. And it was not until he again accepted what was, he understood that this is a part of the responsibility that I signed up for, that I agreed to, and then remained in the present moment, that he began to find a sense of purpose and a sense of presence in a simple thing like washing the dishes, cleaning things up, and doing those things. And it was in the sense of that and in the present moment that he was able to find meaning and to find transformation. I would like to say maybe even more so than some of his fellow monks who were sitting out cloistered in those places, meditating to themselves, because he understood the wisdom and the key to whatever it is that we are engaged in doing. When we can remain present and focused in the moment, it brings meaning and it brings purpose and it brings fulfillment to whatever it is that we are doing. That when we can do that, we enter into a state of joy, of enjoyment. We begin to understand what it means to experience joy in the things that we do. Joy in washing the dishes, joy in making the bed, joy in brushing our teeth. But why not? And if, again, it's something that doesn't bring us joy, then maybe finding a way to not do it. Somebody else do it, something else happens. But enjoyment being the second way. The third way is enthusiasm. 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 Yes! Enthusiasm is essentially when we are able to take enjoyment or joy and we add a goal to it. Then that's when we develop enthusiasm. The word enthuse literally meaning in theos or in God or God infused, or enthusiasm, the word ultimately meaning possessed by a God or possessed by God. But when we allow ourselves to become centered and focused on things that are happening in our lives and begin flowing with the flow, we can begin doing things with enthusiasm. We can begin moving through life with enthusiasm, through life with a sense of joy, with a sense of purpose, with a sense of knowing that we don't have to know all the answers. We don't have to overthink, think of every scenario, worst case scenario, and all of those things. We can begin to understand that we are in the divine flow, that is available to us at all times. We heard what April read to us this morning. We understand ultimately that things are already done in the mind of God. It's already available. All of it has been in the sense of creation. It has been there, and we are participating in the process of it unfolding in our lives. We don't have to make it happen. We allow it to happen. And when we gather and enter into a state of enthusiasm, it becomes like an arrow that's focused on its target. Now, there are people that will see people that are enthusiastic, and they'll think that you're enthusiastic. They'll think that, oh, you look like you're stressed and all of that. But you're on a different level. You have an energy that allows you to, as you see some people say sometimes, that you have goals in mind that make you get up in the morning. You almost can't wait to get up in the morning to be a part of life and to be a part of this grand symphony, this grand undertaking that's called life, that you add your own music to, your own capability to, your own gifts and understanding to, your own awareness to. And you have the opportunity to do these things because it's done with a sense of being in the present moment, and it's done with a sense of enthusiasm and just joy. You begin to understand that. And what so often happens, and I would confess, as an overthinker, I want to become a reformed overthinker. But what so often happens is all of that worry, all of that stress, and all of that other stuff that we put into it, and we've been, and ultimately, it worked out. Oh, yes, it did. It worked out. Because you're in the flow. It worked out. And so why was I doing all that worrying and all of that stressing and all of that wondering how this is going to happen and how that's going to happen? And ultimately, you understand it's in the divine flow. I talked about it earlier here this morning. When I was away for the last 2 weeks, Zora very capably carried on with the message, and you all carried on with everything else here. And I talked about and I joked about the fact that my mother will always say when she knows I'm not here, well, who carried on? And I said, well, Open Heart carried on. There was a time in my life I thought I had to do it all by myself. I didn't know that the grace of God was sufficient, and so I would be constantly looking at my clock and my watch or time or whatever because I was away from here. hope this goes all right, and I hope that goes all right. And I wonder where they are now, and I wonder what they're doing now. And there was one particular time, I think we were away on vacation and something, and she said, if you don't stop, Openheart's going to be all right. And I learned in that moment about flowing with the flow. All of us can learn to flow with the flow. That life has so much in store for us. That when we can be in the present moment, when we can bring that connection that is who we are into whatever situation or circumstance it is, with joy and enthusiasm, it all is all right. Charles Oliver would say it's already all right. And so it is.
knowing that there is only one power and one presence in the universe, and that is God. And as each of us embodies all that we have learned today, we take it in, we make it our own, and we simply live from those very truths. We give thanks for all who have participated today. We give thanks for the lesson, the music, the centering moment, the affirmative reading, and just all of the beautiful energy each and every person brings into this space and into this place. Moving forward, knowing that I don't have to overthink anything. I just learn how to be with the present moment. Surrender to whatever it is that's going on around me. Move through life with just this beautiful joy, knowing that I am enjoying life and being enthusiastic about each and every little bitty thing. Just knowing that it's already done in the mind of God. So I just let that be. So I release. I let go. I let God. And so it is.
So it is.